Hello and welcome. In this video, I want to share with you this one thing that can radically transform your love life, your romantic relationships, how you show up in them, how you are shown up for. And it also translates to other areas of your life, which is really cool. But most people definitely experience this particular dynamic in romantic relationships, and that's usually where the most intensity and sometimes even suffering occurs. For some reason, this one little piece of information has been the one thing that has helped so many of my clients and my friends completely change their perspective on the situation they were dealing with. They've been able to let go of a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of pain, and also let go of toxic dynamics that were not working for them as well. This information is also what helped me stop getting stuck in these toxic dynamics of like anxious, avoidant attachment drama. That dance sucks so bad, and it's so draining, and we just have better things to do with our time than get caught up in that merry-go-round roller coaster. When you are dating or doing the romantic relationship dance, like, do you ever feel like you're not enough for that other person? Do you ever feel like you have to win or earn their love? Do you feel anxious and consumed by that person and have a really hard time getting them out of your mind and focusing on other things that are important to you? Or do you feel like you're constantly striving to be accepted by this person? If any or all of these resonate with you, then it's highly likely you're dealing with a case of intermittent reinforcement. The other question I'll ask is, does this other person, or are you attracted to people who give off the hot-cold vibe? Like, do they really draw you in and seem really excited to be with you and spend time with you and, say nice things and drop these really awesome compliments that you're really just overjoyed to hear? And then on the other hand, they can leave you on red for a while. They don't respond to your messages, or maybe they straight up ghost you, or they'll make plans with you and drop them, or maybe when you're around them, they feel very standoffish and you just don't know where you stand with them. If that is a familiar thing that you experience often in relationships, then definitely listen to this, because I think it's going to help a lot. So when we're dealing with inconsistency in relationships, when it's coming from another person, they're hot one minute and then they're cold the next, this is called intermittent reinforcement. It's that inconsistency. You never know what you're going to get in any given moment. It's also coined as the slot machine effect. So if you know slot machines, like, you pull the lever, highly likely nothing good is going to happen, but there's that chance that you might win the jackpot, and that's very exciting, and it is also highly addictive. And there's a science to this. Our brain chemicals get really activated whenever we are in situations of intermittent reinforcement. Dopamine is released into our system. It's a reward chemical, but we release it, we get a hit of it when we are in anticipation of the reward. We don't get the high from that chemical when we do receive what we were seeking. We get a hit of it at the thought of receiving the award. So we do the thing. It leads to this compulsive behavior and is the main driver behind most addictions. It's the same thing as what we experience with social media addiction, video game addiction, or even food addiction. That excitement of that experience gets us going. So when there's somebody that you're interested in or that you have fallen for, and you want to connect with them, but you're not sure if they're going to receive you or not, or if they're entirely interested in you or not. That causes a sense of unknown. And it also can be registered as a system as a slight threat, as the insecure situation. So when you're thinking about reaching out to this person and you don't know what kind of response you're going to get, there's amp up of energy, there's excitement, maybe even some cortisol and other chemicals flowing in your being, but it definitely gets you feeling a whole lot. And oftentimes, if this person doesn't respond in the way that you were hoping or has you feel rejected, then that can cause a whole nother experience that's really hard. And usually what happens in these dynamics, if we start to feel the rejection, we will start to pull away because we realize, okay, this person's not that into me, all right, and oftentimes we'll pull away, but then that person will feel that tug, and then they'll be like, oh, hey, what's up, and that feels really good, and so you get hooked back in. We're like, oh, they do really like me, and that really fills that hole that rejection left inside of us. So they did studies on this with different animals, and what they would do is they would have a treat dispenser, and so the thing's full of treats. And then on the dispenser, there's a little rep button or a lever that the animal would either peck or push. I know they did this with rats and pigeons and other critters. But what would happen is that, they would change the way that the treat was dispensed, either all the time, none of the time, or some of the time. So when the treat was dispensed, 100% of the time that the lever was pressed, the animal would come and it would press the thing and it would get his treat, and then it would go on, live his life perfectly happy, and then when he wanted a treat, he would come back and press the lever again, and then leave and do his own thing. If the dispenser just never dispensed a treat, even though it was full of treats and the animal could see it and smell it, they would lose interest pretty quickly and just ignore it after a few failed attempts. However, whenever the dispenser would randomly dispense a treat, about half of the time, the animal would become completely obsessed with the treat dispenser. It would just keep hitting that button. What they found was if it dispensed a treat from 30 to 70% of the time, that was a hot spot to create the most obsessive neuroses in these creatures. So a lot of times when we think that we can't get someone off of our mind, or we're kind of being obsessive and we feel that flutteriness and that just constant rumination on them and a little bit of like, oh, butterflies and anxiety around a person, we feel like we have this impulse to continue reaching out to them, to continue pressing that button, to continue to try to get the treat of their attention and their love. But that might not be the most healthy thing for us. The most important thing you can do is take a step back from the situation and really tap into how you're feeling. Usually in these situations, the people I've spoken to and when I've gone through it, like, it doesn't feel good. Like, it really doesn't feel good. Yeah, there's this excitement and impulse and pull towards another person, but it feels stressful. It's like pressure. It's like breathlessness. It's very uncomfortable. It can cause you to not eat and not sleep. And a lot of times, since we are obsessed with that person, like our brain is stuck on them, right? Because we have this impulse or this lack of impulse control because these dopamine drips that are happening around this person, like it's a crazy making thing, right? Like when you start to see it for what it really is, it's not that cute anymore. It's like crushes aren't really that fun unless the other person's actually consistently reciprocating, and then it's not going to feel like some big jitter spark fest. So one of my dear friends started seeing a person who was not consistent in their communication. And she told me, like, I feel really hurt, but I'm also very interested. Like, I'm feeling really hurt and kind of stressed out. I don't know if I'm enough for this person. I mean, she knows she's a badass bombshell. She's gorgeous, incredible woman. But the way that this guy was treating her was making her feel less than worthy. And I want to tell you right now that a lot of these dating coaches for men actually teach men to do this. They will teach men to dish out intermittent reinforcement because they know that this is going to happen in your brain, and they know how powerful it is, and they can actually gain a lot of control over you if you don't recognize what is going on, because it will completely override your impulses. I know that there are female dating coaches who will teach kind of a similar thing. So if anyone is acting this way towards you in any sort of hot, cold kind of way, like, it's really good to center yourself and take a deep breath and check in with how you are actually feeling. And it's highly likely you are going to become aware of stress in your body. And is that the way that you want to feel around anybody that you want to be intimately close with? I hope it's not. It's not going to be good for you in the long run. So this guy would call her up and make plans, and then not call to follow up. And then she was in the situation like, oh, do I check in with him about that, or do I just pretend that we canceled? I don't know. Like, she started getting really anxious around like what she was supposed to do, what the appropriate thing was. I mean, I've been there before. It's terrible. Yeah, he would also postpone plans but not give her an actual date. Just leave things really open-ended and leave her questioning. So what that's going to do to the brain is going to like cause this problem. Is this open-ended thing? There's no closure. And what do we do when we don't have closure? Like, we keep looping, we ruminate, like it doesn't stop, right? There's not that exit point. A lot of people don't understand this about our human psyche. And then there are people who do understand that, and they will actually use it against you. But either way, if it's intentional or if it's not, it's going to stress you out and leach your energy. So it's just not a good dynamic to engage with. So she was feeling so stressed out and shut down and embarrassed and less than, right? She was in this position where, you know, call it the one down position, because she was waiting on this guy to tell her what's going on. And it was making her miserable. And she knew it was making her miserable, but she was still like, oh, but I don't know this guy. Like there's still this deep fascination. And here's the thing, as soon as I let her know about this intermittent reinforcement and these lab tests that were done and what's actually happening to her brain, she was able to snap right out of it, and ended up feeling like she was more in control of herself. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is, like, when we are in that pattern, we start to lose control of our impulses, of how we're feeling, of how we're thinking. It's kind of like we get a little hypnotized. It takes over us, and we lose control of our faculties, of how we feel, of how we behave, because we're in this loop. We're tranced out. And so that's why I'm providing this information for you, is because if you can see it, you can get out of it. Like, that is your closure. I had an experience where I was very lightly, briefly dating somebody, and I started noticing this happening after I'd finally learned this. God, where was this information when I was 17 years old, right? If you're learning this young, you're very, very lucky. Yay for you. But yeah, I started noticing myself ruminating more about this person, getting really excited, and then also, you know, like sending a text and being like, uh-oh, you know, like, was that the right thing to say? Was that the wrong thing to say? How is he gonna think about me? And I was getting these very mixed messages from him. But yeah, everything started really ramping up in my anxiety levels and in my interest levels too. It definitely made me way more interested in this guy. But once I could see what was happening, it was like everything just neutralized. And I felt so much relief. And I'll compare that to how I feel now in my relationship. It's such a huge and beautiful contrast. We have a very healthy and secure dynamic. It's not like anything I've ever experienced before. Just I'm so grateful for it. But I don't think about him all the time, and he doesn't think about me all the time. Like, we go 2 days, 2 or 3 days sometimes without seeing each other, and our text messages they're very brief. Like, there might be a little hi in the morning, maybe a little how's it going at night. There are exchanges of maybe about 5 sentences, and it's not a lot. It's not a lot of contact, but because there is such a deep level of security and trust between us, we both know that we're good. And so that allows there to be this spaciousness, this comfortable spaciousness where no one's wigging out wondering if the other person likes them or not, because it's there, we like each other, we're secure in it, and it's so nice. Like, it leaves so much room for us to do our own thing and live our lives. And when we come together, it's really sweet and lovely, but we don't have emotional ups and downs and things like flying all over the place. Yeah, that's a good, healthy relationship style. None of this like back, forth, all over the place, get you so dysregulated. You don't know up from down, and you're all like dizzy on your brain chemicals, thinking that that's love. Like, sorry, you deserve better than that. Dysregulation's not great. Like, a lot of times we think that a dysregulated nervous system means that we really, really like somebody, and that's not the case. Our brain is just very fascinated. That person's usually familiar to us, and in a not so fun way. They usually, remind us of a person or a situation in our past that has us feeling like, yeah, we're not enough. We have to prove ourselves, or we're unworthy of that love, or have to earn it or win it. And just any dynamic that makes you feel that way, it's really good to take some time and ask yourself if that is what's going on. If you're in a relationship, or just starting a relationship, and you have these things moving in you, like the obsession, rumination, doubts, you're constantly like worried about how you're coming off to them, step back and go inside and feel inside of your body and see how you really feel. Like, if you feel tense and all bound up, and it doesn't matter if you feel excitement or flutters in your heart at the same time. Like, if you feel tense and bound up, then that is a signal that you are dysregulated, and you are dealing with, dopamine spikes from someone who is not consistent, and from some sort of unknown. Like, if you don't fully know how this person feels about you, it's going to cause that shakiness, which so many of us have been taught means that we love this person, that we're really into them. If they're going to sweep me off my feet, intoxicate me, that means that it's meant to be. Like, no, honey, like, you being swept off your feet is not a great thing. Like, you want to be standing and have your agency about you to navigate a relationship, and you don't want to be intoxicated either, because intoxication means that something's toxic. Okay, so you can be sober about the way that we relate to each other. And I mean, yeah, sure, this shit's fun when you're really young, but you do that enough and you realize that it could take its toll on you. So yeah, to finalize, intermittent reinforcement is the same thing as running game on somebody. You don't want anybody to be running game on you, getting you all tweaked out and hot and bothered in a bad way. And if you're dealing with that, then go ahead and hit the brakes and start going in a different direction. towards something that's more stable and secure. If you want that. Now, if you're a sucker for the drama and you love that shit, then by all means, get on your slot machine and have a load of fun. But for those of you that are actually looking for a secure and healthy relationship, anything that's leaving you feeling like that and unstable is not going to provide what you were looking for. The last thing that you want is to become trauma bonded with somebody and to abandon yourself in order to get someone else's love or validation. I hope that you found this information to be as helpful and as fascinating as I have. And if you have anything to say about that, feel free to leave a comment, and I will see you in the next one.